You asked for it. Here it is. It's a podcast from Apathetic Enthusiasm.
In this episode, we have so many spiders. They're everywhere. It's just so many spiders.
Hello,
Apathetic
everybody.
Enthusiasm.
Welcome to the There's Too Many Spiders podcast. brought to you by Arachnophobia, the movie in theaters everywhere in 1987, I think it was.
Was it 80s? Yeah, early 90s.
I'll look it up, but I'm pretty sure. Maybe it's like shit.
Yeah.
Okay. Go to
Yeah,
IMDb.
Arachnophobia. That's what we're going to talk about. But before we do,
you talk about intro shit. I'll look up Arachnophobia.
Hello, everybody. I'm Travis. He's Brandon. He likes Arachnophobia. If you like Arachnophobia or any
1990.
other,
It was 1990.
1990. It's a 90s movie.
Right on
Split
the
the diff. Split the diff, as they say. Anyway, follow us on Twitter at Apathusiast. I'm at Chicomino. He's at Barnyard Cruise. We're on Facebook. We're at email apatheticenthusiasmshow@gmail.com. Follow our Instagram, apathetic_enthusiasm. We post reels there now. It's a thing. And then you can go to our website, apatheticenthusiasm.com. We are streaming live, as we do almost every Monday night, over at twitch.tv/apatheticenthusiasm. Thanks to those hanging out in the chat. And then if you missed the live stream, but you still want to see what we look like, you can go to youtube.com/apatheticenthusiasm. Like, subscribe, do all the things you do on YouTube. Maybe catch an occasional YouTube short. Very occasional. It's rare, but they're there.
Very occasional. It happens once a week. I posted 3 this week, Travis. I posted 3 of them.
All right, I'll have to check
They're all on Friday.
I'll have to check the YouTube studio a little bit later, see how they're performing.
I didn't spread them out, but they're all there.
Yeah, spamming the videos over on YouTube. Finally, a big thank you to our patrons over at patreon.com/apatheticenthusiasm. Thanks for supporting the show, supporting us, and being all around cool people.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. 1990. Arachnophobia.
1990. Arachnophobia. Just want to put this out there for anybody who is interested about what type of stuff we have on our Patreon. It's a whole lot of me just doing music shit at this point in time.
Yeah, if you really like Brandon playing music and you're not on the Patreon, you're missing out.
Yeah. Yeah,
and then occasionally you get a post show that I think I forgot to post one last week.
Oh, maybe you did.
You're gonna get double post show posts.
Double that post show. By the way, for our audio listeners, you don't know this, but we are both wearing In-N-Out shirts.
Completely unplanned. We just happened to both be wearing them.
Yeah, definitely unplanned. Sure.
Well, okay, I have to. Okay, I understand there's like a cult-like following for In-N-Out Burger, especially if you grew up on the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
You like In-N-Out, I like In-N-Out. That has been established. That is podcast canon. But you have In-N-Out Burger readily accessible to you. It is on your drive home, so to speak. I have to travel across state lines to get it. Now, you had In-N-Out Burger for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
You made sure to send me not one, but at least 3 photos of you enjoying your dinner.
Yeah.
And then you came into the podcast studio, so to speak, and you removed 2 layers of clothing. You removed a hoodie and then a polo shirt to reveal your In-N-Out Burger shirt underneath. The question is, Brandon, did you put on that shirt today with the intention to go get In-N-Out? Did you put on the shirt and then think, hey, I'm wearing an In-N-Out shirt, I should get In-N-Out for dinner? Or did you just go to In-N-Out and happen to be wearing the shirt?
Well, Travis, it is more along the lines of option 3, because I'm wearing a black In-N-Out shirt, and I don't have a huge swath of black undershirts for my polos, and so I have here's what it is. Sometimes I want to take my polo off at work and then also have a shirt that I want to wear. So sometimes I wear a Steely Dan shirt. Sometimes I wear a Mystery Science Theater 2000 shirt, Army of Darkness or Friday the 13th. It's underneath my professional looking polo shirts just in the case I'm like, I'm gonna go to a bar later. Woo! Time to party with some Evil
Steely
Dead.
Dan. Yeah.
And so yeah, I wore an In-N-Out undershirt, and I was in a rush. I was coming home, and I'm like, I need to get dinner. And I was like, well, what's right off the freeway? You know what? In-N-Out. Let me get In-N-Out. I haven't had that in a while. Let's snag it. Sure enough, line was pretty low. I'm like, okay, got In-N-Out. Got home, immediately thought about how I was going to rub it in your face that I had In-N-Out. And then
Sheena says you're rude, by the way, based on the photos.
yeah.
Yeah.
Said I was in a rush, made a joke about being in a rush, eating all my In-N-Out. And then when I got in here, took my jacket off. Then as I was taking my polo off, I thought, oh yeah, I have an In-N-Out shirt on. Fancy that.
I think it's only fair that we share with our viewing audience the photos that you sent me.
Okay.
So this is his burger. These are the fries.
Eating a burger.
Oh no! And then this is him with what we now know as pink lemonade. So
Yeah.
yeah.
The audio viewer, you're missing out.
You're missing out. Make sure you go to twitch.tv/apathetic enthusiasm or check us out on YouTube. Make sure you can see those photos.
It'll be a reel. It'll be a reel.
I'm
sure.
Real. Yeah. Anyway, we do have actual topics to talk about tonight. So many spiders. We are talking about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Is that the right one? Is that the one we're talking about?
Yeah. So
yeah.
without further ado,
You asked for it. Here it is.
it's our segue. Time to talk about the Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the latest in the Spider-Man movie, to grace us with their magnificent presence. This one is the sequel to what was it?
Into the Spider-Verse.
Into the Spider-Verse. A couple years back, it wowed everybody. The animation was amazing. Like it set off something, and we can talk about this more as we go into the movie itself. But it set off what some people think is like an animation renaissance, about like being able to like take risks in animation, do different types of animation style, and be more artistic in that way. You can see it in like the Ninja Turtle movies that's coming up, even in some like television animation. We talked about Gremlins last week. Like even that is a more stylistic animation choice. So anyways, Into the Spider-Verse, now the sequel to that, part of a 3-part, this part is the second one. There's going to be a third part, Across the Spider-Verse. So let's get into it. Travis, take it away. What do you want to talk about first?
I think just fair warning for anyone listening, we will eventually get into spoiler territory with this review because there are several things that we want to talk about within the story itself. But I think coming off of opening weekend, this was a movie that I was pretty excited to see as an animation fan, as a Marvel fan, as a Spider-Man fan. And I think I slept on the original Into the Spider-Verse movie initially, started to get some buzz in the box office, and eventually watched it. But I don't think I actually watched it until maybe it came out on video. I don't know that I saw it in theaters. But once I saw it, thought it was fantastic, really liked it, and it made me really excited to see this movie. My son was a huge fan. As a bit of a side note, it was one of like maybe 2 movies that he had saved onto an iPad when we went on a very long road trip. So I think he watched this movie like 8 times in a row, just over and over again, because he had limited other options on a road trip. But he never got tired of it. So I don't know if that, is an endorsement of the movie or what. But I heard a statistic where the original Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse grossed about $30 million on its opening weekend, and the estimates coming out of the opening weekend for Across the Spider-Verse, $120.5 million opening weekend. The fans have spoken. They are hyped for this movie, and some people even went out and saw it twice, from what I've heard.
Yeah, some people have definitely heard that. Well, have done that. Some people have seen it. I think maybe more than that, which is
Possibly.
also impressive. They must not have family. Yeah. So this one directed by Joaquim dos Santos, Kemp Powers, and Justin K. Thompson, and written by Phil Lord, Christopher Miller, and David Callahan. First of all, I want to talk about Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. They've been a big part of this animation, like different types of animation for the last couple years, right? Like I think they did Clone High way back in the day. And then they did the Lego movies, right? Like that was them. And they've done some really cool stuff. Oh, I think they did like 21 Jump Street, which was like a great like reboot cool.
Yeah.
With Channing Tatum and stuff like that. Like I remember seeing 21 Jump Street as maybe an aside, but I remember seeing that and being like, that was a really good, funny movie that I wasn't expecting to like as much as I did.
Yeah.
But anyway, I feel like that is with them a lot. That something about what they put into the properties. They're like, it's enough love, but also taking it in a different direction. So anyway, that's a kind of
yeah. So if for some reason you missed the first offering in this franchise, this basically takes a look at Miles Morales. It is focused on the Miles Morales version of Spider-Man, and the first movie was sort of an introduction to how he became Spider-Man, but it quickly opens up a multiverse where he is visited by other versions of Spider-Man, right? So you have a Peter Parker, a Spider-Gwen, you had all kinds of like random Spider-Men, you had Peter Porker, the Spider-Pig,
Noir Spider-Man.
And one of the things I really liked about that film was they utilized the multiverse as a way to represent what is really unique in comic books about how you can have different versions of a character, different storylines, different takes on the same character, and they can all be Spider-Man, right? An artist has a different spin, a different idea. They can write a different story. They can draw the character differently, and so long as they follow certain aspects of sort of the rules of that character, it kind of makes sense. And so that movie really was a way of honoring that in comics, along with the art style, which really pushed the envelope on showing comics on film, on screen. And I feel like Across the Spider-Verse, this new film, takes all of those building blocks and just cranks them up. And you get even more types of Spider-Man. You get they really lean into the animation styles, and overall, I think it just, for me, made the movie that much bigger, that much more fun, and all along doesn't rely on like that as a crutch. It also has a really heartfelt story that I think is fun to watch, and I don't know, it's emotional too. So yeah.
The interesting thing about the movie is kind of coming off the heels of No Way Home, where in No Way Home we're focused on basically all Peter Parkers. We're focused on the three different Peter Parkers from the live action universe. Whereas in Across the Spider-Verse and Into the Spider-Verse, it's all different versions of Peter Parker, right? Like it's not Peter Parker.
It's not even necessarily Peter Parker. Yeah.
Right. Peter B. Parker, Gwen, Peter Porker, the anime one who like her dad is a spider or something like that, or a robot.
Yeah.
Right. So none of them are Peter Parker. And then we go into Across the Spider-Verse, and then the Spider-Man that we're focused on again is now Miguel O'Hara, who is Spider-Man 2099. Jessie is the other Spider Woman. I forget which.
I think she was just Spider Woman in the comics. Like,
yeah, I mean she has a name, but we'll come back to that in a second.
like the actual character's name.
Yeah. But then like Hobie, you have Hobie, you have Paviter Prabhakar, the from Mumbattan Spider-Man. Like so you have all these other Spider people that are not Peter Parker, and like that's what's interesting to me about the movies. One of the things is that they focus on all the different variations of who and what Spider-Man could be. They do share some similarities as far as tragedy goes, but I think the movie goes well into about how they're trying to tell us that this is all how it's supposed to be for a Spider-Man story, a Spider-Person story. It has to be this way, and that is what the central conflict that Miles eventually has to face, that he fights against.
Yeah,
is this is what you're supposed to be? Like, don't tell me what I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, Jessica Drew was
Thank you
was the name. You're welcome.
I did say Jess, so I feel good about that.
It's good. You've seen the movie twice, so you should.
I heard it the second time.
You heard it. Do you want to talk a little bit about your experience in the theaters the first time versus the second time?
Yeah, I guess I can
off.
go. I want to talk about that, but I don't want to talk about that yet. Let's
Okay.
keep talking about the movie itself, and then we can talk about movie theater experience.
Overall, you're talking about the plot of the film, right? And I think it is an extension of the first film in terms of Miles is his own Spider-Man, right? And like there's all these people that are trying to teach him how to be Spider-Man, and he kind of figures it out for himself and then pushes past those limits and comes up with some new powers and some new ways to be his own version of Spider-Man. I guess I wasn't expecting the movie to the new movie to carry that narrative as far, but really that does become the central kind of like crux of the film. Is even if you have this huge network of hundreds of different Spider-Mans, Miles is still this outlier. He's still this unique individual in a sea of Spider-Mans and Womans. And it's really interesting that we see them all kind of fall in line, and he's the one that's not willing to, as much as he wants to feel included and feel a part of this network and this bigger team. Very quickly he realizes I'm not aligned with all of this, and I'm going to do my own thing, so to speak. Which is really cool, and the fact that him and some other characters are willing to stand up for what they think is right and not necessarily just what everybody else is trying to achieve. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and to that point, when that conflict right there about him being the outlier and everyone else kind of walking the Spider-Man 2099 line, I don't know. I'm trying to avoid talking about spoilers necessarily, but if you're listening to this, you've probably either seen it or you don't care about spoilers. You wouldn't be listening to a podcast talking about
spoiler warning. Spoilers are approaching.
But so the whole thing is in the canon of Spider-Man, there is always an Uncle Ben, and there's always some kind of captain or some major death that happens, right? And so Miles finds out that his arch nemesis of the film is going to try to kill his father. And so he's like, I have to go try. I have to try. And all the Spider-Men across the Spider-Verse are like, well, I mean, this is how it has to happen. You have to let him die. And Miles' whole thing is like, no, I have to try. No, why won't you at least let me try? All of you would try. And so I read somewhere or heard someone say that like all those other spider people have already had their tragedies. They've already
Yeah.
like, so it's easy for them to be like, this is how it has to happen. Like bad things happen, people die, and it's just, you know, this. Well, yeah, but you didn't have a chance. It's the free will versus predestination, like, or fate, right? Like, if I know what's going to happen, then I have to do my best to fight it, right?
Yeah.
So, anyways, I thought that was kind of an interesting look at it. All those spider people have their, they already have the deaths on their heads.
Yeah. Along with I don't know. I guess Spider-Man as a character, this movie does do a good job of really just like analyzing what makes a Spider-Man, right? And you talk about those canons, everybody has a tragedy or something that helps sort of form them into their version of Spider-Man. But also like almost every Spider-Man is kind of funny, right? They use humor, and it's funny when they get into the environment where all these Spider-Men are everywhere. How many jokes, how many subtle jokes are just thrown around. They really play up that aspect of Spider-Man, except for 2099. What's his name?
Miguel O'Hara.
Miguel O'Hara. He's far more serious and stoic and matter of fact. But for the most part, all the other, even Spider Punk, right? Gets some jokes out there. I think that's really interesting. Kind of just again, what makes Spider-Man Spider-Man, and when you see
A difference.
somebody not doing that, like any kind of difference, it really stands out. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting choice for them to, and we knew it from the trailers that like maybe the main villain of this episode, this movie would be a Spider-Man 2099. And sure enough, like he's a huge dick.
Do you consider him the villain of this film?
I do. Yeah, I do consider him the villain. Like here's the thing about villains. A good villain is thinks that they're doing the right thing.
Okay. Yeah.
Like they have their reasons, and whether or not they're evil or not, they think that they're doing the right thing. It's why Magneto ends up being a good character. It's why Dracula is a good character. Maybe not Dracula, but he does think he's in love, and he thinks he's, depending on which version of Dracula. It doesn't matter. Whatever. Maybe Jason. He's not doing it because he's doing it. Well, maybe he is. He's killing. He's getting revenge. Doesn't. Whatever. Travis, you know what I'm talking about. So I do think he's the villain.
Do you think he's the main villain more so than Spot, or do you think they're co-owning those roles for this film?
I think that Spot is maybe what they're building up to.
More of a villain of the week, sort of.
Yeah, I think they want him. He's going to be a villain, obviously, but I don't think Miguel is the necessarily main villain of these two movies. Well, of total two movies. I think for this one, he is the primary antagonist because he's the one that is holding Miles back from his goal of protecting his family. He's the one who Miles comes in, wants to be part of something bigger than himself, relate to people who understand what he's gone through, what he's going through. And Miguel is the one who actively tells him, you don't belong here. I don't want you here. And so from that perspective, wanting to belong, from the perspective of protecting his family, Miguel is the one who's keeping him from that. Yes, Spot is going to kill, is actively trying to destroy his life.
Spot is like the mechanism to make Miguel's, intentions realized, so to speak, right? Like Miguel wants that canon to happen, wants Miles to have that loss in his life with the loss of his father. Spot is the one that's going to go do that. it's probably more villainous to be working behind the scenes to make sure that happens than to be the one that unwittingly does it because you're,
Yeah.
a cow character.
You can't you can't ask me to do that. I'm not asking you. And then he traps Miles, right? Like
Yeah.
actively keeping him from doing that, which it's villainous in my eyes. Again, he thinks he's doing the right thing, but my problem, I guess, is like for Gwen, for Peter B. Parker, for some of the other Spider-Men in there, that they would be so willing to go with the plan of this guy who has no humor, and is like, why do I trust you just because you have technology allowing me to do these things?
Yeah, they believe I don't know, they believe what he's selling, right? That this has to happen that way or it's going to break all of the multiverse. If the Spider-Men don't is it like Attorneys General? Is it Spider's Man? How do you pluralize Spider-Man?
Spider-Men,
Spider-Men?
spider people. Just do spider
Spiders.
people
Spider
because there's
individuals.
spider creatures, right? Because we
Spideys.
talk about
We'll just call them Spideys.
Spideys. Because there's a Spider-Man T-Rex, there's a Spider Cat,
Spider-Man eye. Says Greg in the chat.
what a Peter parked car, right? So
There were just so many one-off throwaway versions of Spider-Man that were hilarious. It does make me want to rewatch a couple times to appreciate all of them because I know I would not be able to think of half of them. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah. So going back to the villain angle, Spot. Do you, let's maybe jumping ahead, but what do you think? What do you think of that character, his motivation, where he ends? Because he kind of disappears like midway into the movie.
He does because the space that he's filling as the villain starts to become a little bit overshadowed by Miguel's role within the film, right? And so he becomes a mechanism for the tragedy that is going to occur. But in terms of just like as a villain, I think he has a really good progression as a villain where he starts off as a very inept, not focused, not well thought out villain, very much a sort of villain of the week, if you will. If this was a weekly comic series or cartoon series, this could be one of those throwaway villains that has a power where he can use these transporting spots, and he could be dispatched very quickly potentially by a Spider-Man, by a Spidey, and then move on, right? But instead, what we find is this is not just some throwaway villain, which based on the trailers, I kind of expected that. Just the way he was even shown in the trailers, I was like, yeah, this guy's going to be somebody that he fights once and then we move on.
Yeah.
But he has like a really developed backstory. The fact that they were able to sort of retcon scenes from the first movie to have him be the guy that gets hit by a bagel as they're escaping the research facility. That he was there as like the Hadron Collider is going, and the fact that like he blames Spider-Man for what happened to him and his mutation and the fact that he's lost his family and all these things. All of those connective tissues make for a really good villain, I think. And as that develops, you learn that over the first quarter of the movie, and then he learns more about his powers, learns more about what he's capable of, and then takes the steps to increase his powers. And all of a sudden he goes from a kind of a throwaway villain to like, oh, this guy is actually really strong, really powerful. He's now driven and focused on what he wants to do, and has suddenly become a much more ominous villain that is going to be a lot harder for him, or for any number of Spideys to potentially take out.
Yeah, agreed. What I like is, like, a lot of Spider-Man villain throughout the movie series. Like, he starts off as bumbling. Like,
Right.
I think of Jamie Foxx in the Amazing Spider-Man 2. Well, maybe not Green Goblin, but like, just not having a whole lot of respect. And like, Spot says something. He's like, you use your quips, but no one ever thinks about like how we feel about being on the other side of it, right? And so I think maybe he jumps too quickly to blame Miles for the problem. He doesn't blame Kingpin enough, I think, for any of that. But I do think that he becomes a badass towards the end there, and that animation of him being like ultimate Spot is like, so, like, what is it? Race to Witch Mountain, or that Demon Mountain from Fantasia.
Oh yeah.
Like, where
I
it's
don't know
just,
what it's
like,
called.
it's
Yeah.
just like everything that's going on around him is so fucking cool looking. I mean, yeah. I think that's just a comment on the art in general.
Well,
If you want,
yeah. Let's talk about that, because one of the things while I was watching this movie, and it's probably about halfway through, I just kind of caught myself in awe of the risks that they were taking, design wise, animation wise, the directions they were willing to stretch to create certain effects, to incorporate 3D animation with, flat animation, with pencil drawing, with different art styles, different uses of color. Like, there are studios, there are production houses that you say you want to make an animated Spider-Man movie, and you're going to get a very flat, like, very, all colors have to be true to life, right? And they threw all of that out. And they were willing to take risks and use animation and use art styles to push the story forward, to heighten emotion and action. And to me, like, this has to win, like, best animated feature at the Oscars next year, or I'll
never watch him again.
it just, like, animation wise, this movie is amazing to me. Story aside, like, I love all the things that they do. The way you sent me that those tweets this morning. I woke up to tweets from Brandon. It's the best way to wake up in the morning. I highly recommend it. But it was somebody from the production team talking about is it Hobie, Spider-Punk, and the mechanisms they use to animate him differently than the other characters on the screen. And it was really interesting because the effect comes off really well to give him a much more alternative look throughout the film. What was it?
Yeah.
They animated like every third frame instead of every 2 frames or something for him.
Yeah, so the film is 24 frames per second, FPS. So your eye, all movies is just a bunch of pictures, like a flip book, just done really fast. So 24 frames a second. So they did most of the characters. They did most of the, like, changes of poses on the 2s. So every second frame, they changed the pose or whatever. Well, for Hobie, for Spider-Punk, they did every third frame. And then they also, like, did something different, like, with his, like, his overcoat, where, like, sometimes they would, like, lag that slightly to be on this every second frame and then go into the third frame. And so it always just seemed a little choppier than the rest of everybody. And so, like, super cool. And it's a little trick, but they were able to do that. But when they're doing that alongside all these other animation styles, in the background work, in some live action characters such as Prowler, with a dude from Community. What's his? You know his name.
I
You know his name.
do. Why can't I think of it?
Why do we? Donald Glover.
Donald
Jeez.
Glover. Jeez. Like literally the inspiration for Miles Morales. Like, have you heard that whole backstory about like how Miles Morales is literally based off Donald Glover? Like,
No, I haven't heard that.
um,
I thought the Prowler character was based off of him.
so like there's this whole, and there are people online that have done this breakdown way better than I will, but basically when they were, I think it was when they were casting the Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man, there was a push for Donald Glover to play him, and in Community they actually like make a nod at that. I think it's in the second season premiere, where Donald Glover like wakes up and he's wearing like a Spider-Man pajama top, and it was like a comment on it, right? But that image, right, is it kind of, when they were working on this new run of Spider-Man, it inspired the character of Miles Morales. So Miles Morales is sort of based on Donald Glover, and then eventually when you get to the Spider-Man with Tom Holland, Donald Glover then gets to play the uncle who is a Prowler, right? And he references like his nephew, referencing, without saying Miles Morales, talking about him. So there's, I think Donald Glover actually voices Miles Morales in an animated series. So like there's like all these connections, and they just like play into it one more level by having him cameo in this movie, and I think it's awesome.
Okay, so we talked about the twos and threes of Hobie, of Spider-Punk. Let's just do a little bit of a breakdown. Travis, who's your favorite non-Miles character?
Hobie, 100%. Spider-Punk, 100%.
Everybody knows. Everybody knows it's Hobie. There's not even a point in breaking anything down.
It's a metaphor for capitalism.
It's a metaphor for capitalism.
You know what's funny is Hobie is my daughter's like least favorite. She thought he was annoying. She didn't like him. And I didn't realize that's who she was talking about. She saw the movie before I did. And afterwards I was like, Spider-Punk is awesome. He's the best. And she's like, what? I couldn't stand him. He was just so like annoying, and he like was against everything. And I'm like, yeah, he was a punk. Like he like fully embraced and personified the entire like punk movement with everything he did, like the visual representation, everything he talked about. His role in the story was like anarchy and fighting against the system, and like breaking it down. I'm like, it was perfect. Like I'm sorry you didn't appreciate it. I thought it was great. I thought it was perfect.
Yeah, it's so good. And like the Miles's interactions with him, first when he thought he was a love interest for Gwen, talking about labels, and like that kind of back and forth about like, it's really confusing, man. I don't like bands, but your name is Spider-Punk? I don't get it. Anyways, he's so cool, and that whole that whole metaphor for capitalism. I missed it the first time I saw the movie, and I heard people talk about that line, so I was listening for it the second time I watched it, and then I found it was like, that's couldn't be placed any better.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually asked my kids while we were driving around on Saturday who their favorite, new Spider-Man was, and Spider-Punk is one of your options. Your other options, Spider-Woman, right? Jessica Drew. What's it? I like the Indian Spider-Man. I don't like. Did he have like a? It's
Pavateer, I think is his name.
Yeah. And then I don't think there were there a whole lot of other ones? Like obviously there were like hundreds in in that one dimension, but there weren't a ton. There was the like
It wasn't
Avatar like cyber.
yeah. Oh yeah, Spider Bite. Spider
Yeah.
Bite was. It wasn't like Into the Spider Verse. I think so. So Chelsea, this was her comment about the movie. Why she doesn't feel like she liked it as much as the first one. Like whereas the first one you had all these different spider people, but it focused on them,
Mhm.
and so you were able to focus on them. It was like, oh, that's cool. Here's a bunch of different versions. Whereas this one was like it was just a handful, but they only really focused on Gwen and Miles and Miguel, basically.
To a degree,
Even
yeah.
even Jess, they didn't focus as much on her. So I think that was Chelsea's kind of issue with it, and I think to a certain extent that's true, right? Like we're talking about what's our favorite Spider-Man of this movie, and we're like, well, Hobie, right? That those
Yeah.
Hobie or the villains, the spider
Yeah.
villains. Um, we could talk about Ben Riley really briefly.
He was so brooding and so like um there was one that in the chase where they're chasing Miles out of the facility. There's one that looks just like what's the guy's name that created Deadpool? No.
Yeah, Rob Liefeld.
Yeah. Had a real Liefeld like style to him, and he's like got him in a headlock, and he's like, "I got you stuck in my muscular definition or whatever," right? And like that version of him, I'm like, oh, that looks just like Liefeld,
Yeah.
like right, like
Yeah,
so like the fact that
oh my pose, and then he perfect pose, and he moves his leg to the side.
I think the fact that they're willing to play with the art styles, combine art styles in an individual scene, have characters look completely different, have live action characters incorporated in, you see all these scenes of different universes, and then you have a scene of like Uncle Ben from the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, like when he's dying, and you're like, oh, like there's my childhood, right? Like there's the
Yeah.
so it's just it's really interesting that they're willing to do those things. Oh yeah, spoilers. Lots of spider spoilers if you're just joining us on the on the stream.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're joining us on the stream, Omar is in here, and he doesn't want to hear spoilers. So, actually, he's not. He doesn't care about spoilers normally. But so hang out, Omar. I didn't
Just wait till we talk about the end of the movie.
Greg talking about Aunt May from Tom's too. I looked. I didn't see it specifically, but I was like, I'm sure that was in there somewhere during one of the live action pieces. So
Maybe.
yeah.
I mean, there's so many Easter eggs and things hidden throughout the movie. You could probably watch it 5 or 6 times and still miss things.
Like 2099 calling out the the Spider-Man of 1999 in that whole Doctor Strange stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, calling him out, and then Gwen being like, Doctor Strange, you shouldn't be operating on anyone like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good stuff. All right. Where do you fall on? Because I've heard a little bit of this back and forth. Did you like the second film better than the first
one? It's hard to say. Like the first film was changed a lot of things. Like I watched it in the theaters. I was like, this kicks ass. Like this was not a movie I cared about necessarily, and here it is now, and I love it. And just the animation wowed me, and the story wowed me, and it turned me into a person who was ambivalent about Miles Morales, and turned me into like I like this character and I want to know more about him. Right. Plus Peter Porker was in it. Now Spider. Now going into
John
this
Mulaney's had some problems. He did not come back to do a voice in this one,
but he did have a voice in it. They maybe the cameo voice towards the end.
Did he? I didn't hear it. So
yeah,
but,
yeah. but so so this one like expands on it. There's a lot more uh emotional things to get through. The second time I watched it, the first half was a little bit slower, I guess. Um, especially like parts with his parents, right?
I would say the pacing. There were moments throughout the movie where I was like, all right, let's pick it up. Like, I get what we're talking about, and I know that we're building in some story and things, but like, let's keep moving. Like, I caught myself a couple times being like, all right, like, yeah, it was a little boring.
Yeah,
let's
I
keep
almost
going.
I almost fell asleep during those parts on my second viewing, and I saw that at noon on a Sunday, and I'm like, all right, woo! And those parts dragged a little bit, not because they were bad parts, but just because the movie starts off with a whole lot of action, and then when it goes into the Miles stuff, then it slows down really to build up the emotional stakes of his journey through the rest of the film. And uh once they go into the Spider-Verse, then it picks up, and then I was back into it 100%. So to answer your question, I don't know if I like this one better, but I will say animation wise and scope and ambition, I think it is a way more ambitious film, and way, you said it earlier, like they took the things from Into the Spider-Verse and they took it up another level,
Yeah.
as far as art. And I want to, I think I want to talk about some of that in a second here. But what about you? How do you feel about it?
I I think I liked this one more. I don't know. The first one's I have a bias because it was like the first exposure to this, right? And it did multiverse so well, and the introductory of Miles as a character, it's just such a great film on its own. If that was a standalone film forever and you never had these sequels, I'd still think it was great. I think because this built on it, and I just am so in love with certain images and sequences from this new film that I think I'd have to say I like this one more, just because of where it's building, with the one exception. And maybe this makes it a number 2 for me instead of my number 1.
Oh, here we
How it ends, right?
go. Oh, okay.
This is film 2 of 3, but they didn't have to, go full Empire on us and like build up all of these stakes and put all these things, and then like just kind of like end the movie right as all of these things are kind of coming to a climax. And for me, like, sitting next to my son in the theater as it ends, he looks over me, he's like, "Dad, I'm not satisfied." I'm like, what do you mean? Like, did you like it? He's like, I mean, it was great, but I'm not satisfied. I don't want it to end that way. And I'm like, yeah, that's intentional because they want you to come back and see the last film. But I'm going to come see the third film regardless. You can put some closure on something, on some plot line, and I'm going to come back for it. But it to me, ending a film the way that this one did, just doesn't, it's not as satisfying. And so to me, that's a little bit of a ding against it.
Yeah, I can see that, because even with Empire Strikes Back, like there's a little bit of, it ends on a softer note, right? It's like, okay, Han Solo's gone. We gotta go get him. We gotta go get him back. I just lost my hand. A robot built me a robot hand. you know,
Yeah.
like there's something to look forward to, but it's not like, he chopped off my hand. What am I gonna do? To be continued, right?
Yeah.
That, and I think that's the equivalent of it. At the end of this film, Gwen, she gets the band together, and they're all gonna go get and help Miles. Miles, who finds himself in the wrong dimension, trapped by the Prowler, in the claws of the Prowler. and him gonna fight through his own thing. And then
I
also
loved how they did that whole thing, by the way. Like I do love the last like 20 minutes of this movie. Like it's just, I just wish it wasn't the last 20 minutes. That's my problem.
yeah. And yeah, I get that being a problem. Like I don't, you knew it was gonna be a 2 of 3. I knew it was gonna be a 2 of 3. So me going into the 2 of 3 was like, I know this isn't gonna end. It's not gonna wrap up the entire story. I know that. So I guess my last 20 minutes, the first time, was like a bunch of false peaks. That's what it is. It's like going up the Manitou incline in Colorado Springs. You're walking up the hill. You're like,
A reference everybody understands.
Everyone gets. You're walking up this steep ass mountain, and you can see the peak. And as soon as you get to that peak, you realize, oh no, it's just the angle I was at. I couldn't see the real top of the mountain. Oh, it's gonna keep going. That's what happened at the last 20 minutes of the movie. Is, oh, shit's gonna happen. Yeah. Oh, something else is gonna. Oh no. And so there's a little bit of excitement fatigue where you're like, one of these parts would have been good to end it. Like when Gwen leaves her father, that might have been a good place to end it. Even with Miles being faced with the Prowler, like that reveal, that would have been like a good, like, dum, what happens next? Not a, yeah, with this badass, woo, to be continued. And it's like, no, you're
Yeah.
continue me on a there's no resolution or it's like music. Like they're just like wait, where's the bottom? Right? There should be
It's coming in theaters in March of 2024.
But yeah, so I'm with you on that. One thing I really love. So again, I've said it a couple times. I'll say it again. I saw the movie twice. The first time, what I liked about the intro was it starts off, Gwen is playing the drums and she's talking about like spider people, and I'm not the only one. And there's like a bunch of scenes that she's playing the drums, and it's a very like angsty like, and what I didn't realize then, and this is a spoiler for you, Omar, is it's actually showing a bunch of scenes from throughout the movie. She's actually talking about what happens throughout the course of the movie as she's playing the drums in the beginning. But at the beginning, you don't know that, and she's going through some kind of emotional turmoil as she's playing the drums. Now, at the very end of the movie, as it's reaching this crescendo of emotion, she's got her own band now of a core group of spider people to help save Miles. It's that same drum, angsty kind of drum beat going on, the same music, at least same or similar music, but it's in a completely different context, whereas the intro is like strife, the end is determination to help save her friend. And it's like, it's such a fucking cool thing to realize when you piece those things together, that like this movie is told from Gwen's perspective, essentially. Like she is our narrator. It's almost like a lot of it is Miles, but in a way it's like, it starts with her, it ends with her. It's kind of about her growing up and realizing what it is to be a spider person.
A Spidey.
Yeah. A Spidey.
Yeah. We have talked about Spider-Manning for nearly an hour now. So if you're still with us or you're joining us online, and we've given you the spoiler warnings numerous times, I'm gonna talk about the last like 10 minutes of this movie, which has a huge spoiler and a huge twist. But I absolutely loved it because upon first viewing, when Miles gets sent back to his home dimension, I bought it hook, line, and sinker. I had no reason to think otherwise, and the way the action, the excitement level of him trying to escape from the 2099 environment, and Miguel's trying to rip through the virtual, cube or whatever, the geometric thing that's going to send him back. You're like, that's what you're focused on. Like, is he going to make it, and then boom, he's out. He's thrown back into this world that he knows. He goes home. He has this heartfelt conversation with his mom, and like, I bought it. I was eating it up with a spoon. And then when she's like, "What are you talking about? Like, what? Oh, Spider-Man? Is that like is that where you wear to your Comics Con or whatever?" Like, and all of a sudden it like dawns on me. The spider, it's not his DNA. He gets sent back to the spider, which is the first anomaly that is sent from another dimension. He's sent back to the spider's dimension, where that spider was not there to bite anyone and create a Spider-Man. And so then they start to peel back those layers of, oh, in this world, there never was a Spider-Man. And so then when Prowler shows up, or who you think is Prowler, his uncle's back, his uncle's alive. The reveal of Prowler in that dimension, I was just like, let's go. This is legit. This is going to be awesome. I'm so ready for this. However this interaction is going to go, to be continued. Like, I was so hyped for it.
Yeah.
And then the movie ends. I don't know. What did you think about the way that was written, the way that it was shown to us, the viewers, and just the overall concept of it?
Yeah, let's do that real quick. Which is, the first time I watched it, I didn't know that he was going to the wrong dimension. What I did notice, like on a subconscious level, I was like, there's something not right here. There's something off that I'm not really catching. I don't know what it is yet, right? And then eventually you get the reveal of, oh, he's in the wrong universe, and then Miles, that universe's Miles is the Prowler. I mean, once I realized that he was in the wrong universe, the uncle, they go up to the rooftop. Prowler hits Miles, and the uncle is not in the Prowler costume. That was okay. Well, it's Miles. Okay, cool. Moving forward, and then so that reveal wasn't surprising to me. It was just like, how are they going to reveal that that's Miles? Clearly, it's the same make and build of how big he is. So I was cool with that. And I'm like, all right, this will be an interesting thing to explore, the duality of Miles in a world where he didn't have a good mentor, and what a good mentor can do or not do for a person. Okay, now the second time I go see it, I pay extra attention to the differences between them, and that's when the subconscious things that I felt before, I realized the room was different. The room was different because Gwen is like outside his room in his real universe, and she's like they film it to where it's like she's listening into Miles talking to his mom, but the inside of the room is different than what she's looking in. There's a different poster on the wall. I think in his universe it says sashimi. In his not universe it says like Owami or something like that. And the poster colors are different. Gwen, the universe she's in, it's raining. And then whenever it cuts back to Miles where he is, it's not raining outside. And the lighting is different. There's a lot of these very, very subtle differences that they don't hide from you. They're there.
Greg mentioning there's no toys in the bedroom that he's in.
Good call, Greg. Yeah, there's no toys there. All of these like very minor differences that, again, the filmmakers are not hiding from you at all. But once you realize that there is a difference, it's just beautiful that that they're like, here you go, we gave you the clues. So it was really really cool to me.
Overall, I think we both love this film. I think we're both super excited for the next one to come out. Only a mere 9 months from now. So yeah, we could rate this film. I don't think we need to. It's probably close to 8, 9, somewhere in the 9 range, for us. But yeah, if you haven't seen this movie, you listened to this whole episode, and you haven't seen this movie, for starters, good for you. But also go check out this film because it really is incredible. If you love animation, even if you're not a Spider-Man fan, but you just really appreciate animation, I think it's definitely worth checking out just to see all of the different art styles and things that they pull off in this film. And yeah, and if there's anything that we missed, if there's anything that we didn't talk about with this movie in the hour that we've been discussing it, yeah, hit us up. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know what you thought about it. You can send us an email, apatheticenthusiasmshow@gmail.com. Hit us up on Twitter or leave a comment in this YouTube video. And yeah, we'd love to hear what you guys think about the movie and all of your thoughts. So, Brandon, before we head over to the Twitch/Patreon only post show, any other thoughts?
I have 2 major thoughts, Travis. The first
3 hours later.
The first of those thoughts is the everything within Spider-Gwen's universe, the way they did the art whenever she's interacting, it's got these heavy pink, blue tones. It's like watercolor. It feels very, very watercolorish, which is akin to some of the covers for in the actual comics for her. And they do. I love her segments because her emotional cues, her interactions with her father, like some of it is kind of a static watercolor, but then when emotion starts happening, the watercolor starts to run. It's like they're adding water to it, and it's just kind of dripping in the background. And it's a way more artistic, avant-garde type of animation, which is it's so fucking beautiful to me.
The entire sequence where she goes back home and her dad's there and she has that interaction with her dad. I was emotional. I thought that was just beautiful. I love everything about that sequence. Don't sleep on this movie. If you have not seen it, it's really good.
It hits. So then the second thing is, and the last thing I'll say is, I saw it twice, everybody. The reason I saw it twice was, one, I wanted to see it, sure. But the main reason actually was we saw it on Friday, and I saw it in standard. I didn't see it in fancy IMAX and Dolby Surround, any of that stuff. What you might find, what you might go on Twitter or Reddit, you might hear that the sound is not. Some people are having a hard time understanding the dialogue, hearing the dialogue, and it has something to do with the mixing. And some Reddit posts explain it better than I do. But we saw it on Friday, and I could barely hear a lot of the dialogue that was happening. Even non-action scenes, I was having a hard time understanding the dialogue. And then even and so some of the monologues where Spider Gwen is talking, it sounded like the center of the mix was gone. So it kind of sounded like in stereo, like it was coming from either side of the left and right, the far left and right, but it wasn't coming from the middle. This kind of sounded weird. So I'm like, I do want to see it again. Let me go ahead and see it again, this time in IMAX. Let's upgrade my experience, check out some more details for the podcast and see if I can hear anything better. And the mix was still not great. It still had that kind of stereo kind of thing. But I know Lord has been handing out on Twitter saying tell your studio or your movie theater operators, bump it up to 7.5 their volume so they can hear it. But you might have the same issue, especially with the Cockney accent of Spider-Punk.
Yeah,
that made it really difficult to understand.
I felt like the theater that I saw it in, overall, it was generally just quieter. But that's the second movie I've seen in this theater in the last month that I felt like it was like the volume was too quiet. Mind you, the other two films I've seen in the last month, I did see both of those in IMAX. One of them in like a Dolby IMAX theater that was like super loud. But maybe I'm just getting old and losing my hearing, and I need to just go see things in Dolby IMAX exclusively. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Or just they need to compress their mixes a little bit differently. Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows?
That's the biggest issue I had with the movie. But if you have seen the movie, if you're going to see the movie, make sure you hit us up and let us know what you thought. But I think that's it for me, Travis. I'll let you get the final word.
This whole podcast, it's just been a metaphor about capitalism. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'm Travis.
I'm Brandon. Goodbye.
Spider's Man?
Spider individual?